Right, a little disclaimer before I begin. This video centres on a topic matter which is a bit niche, so it's not going to appeal to everyone. If you decide to click off it and go do something else halfway through, then that's fine. I just need to let out a bit of frustration whilst the iron is still hot. When it comes to video games, I am more often than not attracted to the racing game spectrum for multiple reasons. One, I am a self-proclaimed petrol head, and proudly so. Two, I love spending my hours tweaking and customizing vehicles to make them stand out and give them a whole new personality. And three, in an environment dominated by first-person shooters such as Fortnite, Call of Duty, Apex Legends, etc., racing games have, for the most part, been a beneficial break from microtransaction-filled, cosmetic-infused slop and paywalls everywhere you look. Too bad most publishers don't view things the same way. Earlier this week, I think it was Monday afternoon, publisher Electronic Arts dropped a new video regarding the future of one of its most popular franchises, Battlefield. Now, I'm not going to play you the entire video for fear of EA sending a SWAT team round to my place, or worse, cancelling my Game Pass Ultimate subscription, but I do want to focus on one section in particular. 4 whole development studios working on Battlefield? Wow, that's a lot. Wait a second. Criterion Games is one of them? I thought they were working on the Need for Speed series. Wasn't that the reason why they were given the rights to the series back? Yep. Here we go again. Need for Speed has been put on hold indefinitely, with Criterion Games, the current lead developer, now working on Battlefield. Why? Now, before I go any further, I want to say this. The last decade has certainly been a mixed bag for Need for Speed, to say the least. When the series was handed over to Ghost Games in 2013, it was an opportunity for the series to rebuild itself on a solid foundation, considering that up until this point, the last few mainline entries had a smorgasbord of studios stepping up one at a time to sprinkle on whatever pixie dust they thought would make the series good. Ghost Games was no exception to this, I'll admit. Following a strong start with Rivals in 2013, Need for Speed abandoned its yearly release cycle and rebooted itself for 2015. That didn't go smoothly, although in fairness, they did try their best to listen to fans, and I miss when that was considered common practice amongst game development companies. And when Need for Speed Payback arrived in 2017, it threatened to put the series in neutral for a whole host of reasons, which I won't get into. Thankfully, Ghost Games took the brunt of criticism and came back strong with Need for Speed Heat in 2019, before EA shut them down, turned their offices into a support hub, and sent Need for Speed back to Criterion Games, who had previously been in charge of the series. Heat was left behind, a remastered version of the studio's first foray into Need for Speed followed suit, and then Criterion got to work on the next mainline entry, until they were told to stop. With hindsight, probably not EA's best decision, although one could argue, has EA ever made any good decisions in recent years? I'd say yes, but that's a story for another time. Fast forward to December 2022 and Criterion releases Need for Speed Unbound. Not many people have the chance to play it because it's only available on 9th generation consoles, and the PC version isn't much cop, and those who do get the chance, they come away feeling a bit conflicted. Thankfully, the game has gotten better over the past 2 years with a handful of new features, but whilst that's been going on, clearly EA isn't interested in giving Need for Speed the proper care and attention it needs, because now the Kaizen team working on the updates for Unbound has been told to move over to Battlefield. God, I hate game publishers right now. I really, really do. Now, the remainder of this video is going to be a bit more unscripted, me just giving my honest, unfiltered thoughts about the situation. And I'm not happy with the decision that EA has taken. I'm not a fan of shooter games, first-person shooters, third-person, whatever you want to call them. I'm not a big fan of Call of Duty or Apex Legends or Fortnite, and the same goes for Battlefield. And when you look at the numbers, Battlefield hasn't sold as well as Need for Speed has. And it's certainly not up there with Call of Duty, which last time I checked was on 500 million copies sold with the release of Black Ops 6 last October. And Battlefield is about a fifth of that. And I. I'm not happy that EA has taken the decision to have 4 whole studios working on Battlefield, whereas Need for Speed has just one studio. Like, it just seems a bit unfair in my opinion. Like, I'm not saying that those 4 studios should all be working on Need for Speed, but when you have a franchise that has become as big as Need for Speed has, you want a development team that is capable of delivering good updates and new content. And I appreciate what the Kaizen team at Criterion have managed to do in terms of delivering updates for Unbound, but it is a little disappointing that they haven't been able to, do more, owing to the fact that they simply don't have the manpower. In terms of racing games within the EA portfolio, it seems like EA is focusing on EA Sports F1 and EA Sports WRC, which are developed by Codemasters, whom EA bought a few years ago. And neither of these franchises really interest me. Like, I've played a couple of F1 games and I've tried out WRC. It's fine, but nothing really special. And they're not selling as well. They're not selling in the millions anymore. Like, I don't know how many copies Need for Speed Unbound has sold, but I can imagine it's probably a fair bit more than, say, EA Sports F1 24 or even WRC. You can't really compare Need for Speed with EA Sports F1 or WRC either, because those two franchises are simulation-based racing games, whereas Need for Speed is also, it's not simulation based, it's arcadey in a way, similar to something like Burnout, which Criterion kind of got their name for. Another reason why I'm not happy with this decision is because it's not good, studio management really. Like, you look at what Activision has done with Call of Duty. I mean, how many studios are working on that franchise now? There's like 10 or 11. And it means that studios such as Raven Software, High Moon Studios, and Toys for Bob, under Activision, well, not Toys for Bob anymore because they've gone independent, but Raven Software and High Moon Studios, they were working on some really good non-COD games, and yet their employee numbers were slashed, and those who were lucky enough to still have a job are now in the Call of Duty mines pumping out God knows how many games Activision is going to force them to make before they realize their current strategy just isn't working. And I'm not opposed to studios helping out on other projects. EA Dice, which is the creator of the Battlefield series, they did help out Criterion with 2010's Hot Pursuit, and Criterion themselves helped out Ghost Games with the creation of Rivals, because Ghost was still in the process of, being built when Rivals was in development. But permanently reducing Criterion to a support studio for the sake of Battlefield, it seems a bit cruel, really. And it begs the question, why do you need so many studios working on Battlefield? Like, is there not enough people at DICE? Or, I don't know. I mean, from what I understand, Criterion has been supporting Battlefield since 2015. They did a Firestorm Battle Royale mode for Battlefield 5 a few years ago. They were also pulled off development of Unbound in 2021 to help with Battlefield 2042. And this just begs the question, if EA was intending to have Criterion support Battlefield for the long-term future, why did they close Ghost Games, the studio that was fully dedicated to making Need for Speed games? Like, the reason Ghost was shut down was not, as EA claimed, because they couldn't find enough talent in Gothenburg. Ghost had 2 support studios, one next door to Criterion in Guildford and another in Romania. So that argument seems a bit invalid now. I think the reason why Ghost was shut down was because their games simply weren't as received as well as the Criterion ones, even though like 10 years on from the releases of those games. Uh, 2015 and Heat being seen in a more positive light, whereas something like Most Wanted 2012 is kind of being seen as a bit overrated, which, they're not entirely wrong opinions. I just, it's heartbreaking, really, as a fan of Need for Speed, to see the franchise go on hiatus for the sake of, EA bolstering another franchise which it has not sold as well, and yet for some reason, EA boss Andrew Wilson thinks, yes, this is what we should be investing in. Like, I am so done with live service games. They are not fun to play. All right, they're not engaging. They're not creative. It's just a cesspit of monetization and grindiness. And I know that Unbound is pretty grindy, all right? Unbound certainly has its problems. I'm not its biggest fan, but not once whilst I was playing Unbound did the game ever feel like it was saying to me, oh, if you want to progress even further, you're going to have to fork over like £10 or something. Like, the only good thing to come out of this, is that Need for Speed maybe does need a bit of a revamp, because like the previous four games that have come out, 2015, Payback, Heat, and Unbound, have kind of felt similar in a way in terms of, the cars, customization, handling, physics and stuff. So maybe when Criterion comes back to the franchise, they can, rework that, do something completely new. Because there's been some rumors going around that Criterion did want to make some big changes to Need for Speed, but they couldn't because of what was going on with the development of Battlefield 2042. And if that is the case, then it is a bit of a shame. Like, if you were to ask me what my favorite Need for Speed game of the past 10 years or so is, I'd probably say it's Heat. Heat didn't deserve to die so quickly. And as much as I'm not the biggest fan of Need for Speed Unbound, like, it's not perfect. I have had fun with it. I do think the multiplayer side of things, the online side, is, pretty good fun. The link ups and races to choose from, like, it has issues which are not going to be fixed now, which is annoying. But for all of its flaws, I mean, Unbound, it's been supported. The Kaizen team have, taken in player feedback, and they've listened and implemented changes and brought some new features to Need for Speed, and for that I am grateful to them. That's pretty much it, really. I don't have anything else to say regarding this matter other than EA, you can't just let Need for Speed die, all right? If Need for Speed is going to end, you've got to make sure it goes out with a proper bang. If you'd ended it after Heat, then maybe we wouldn't be so, sad or anything. Although Heat itself wasn't updated that much, so maybe I could be wrong. I'm not sure, but this next Battlefield game has to deliver, all right? Because if it turns out to be another failure like Battlefield 2042, that will bring into question the necessity of whether having four studios on the project, including one that was being rebuilt as a racing game studio prior to EA's decision to move Criterion over to the Battlefield side, into question. And yeah, here's hoping that Need for Speed will come back at some point and continue to entertain old fans and new ones. That's pretty much it from me. If you want to leave your thoughts on the situation down below, feel free to do so. And yeah, if you've listened this far, then thank you for doing so. If you like what you hear, then feel free to share your thoughts. If you didn't, then thank you for listening thus far, and goodbye. Bye for now.